a really decent build of a very interesting World War I armoured vehicle. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I'm going to do an open box review on this brand new kit from Sd.Kfz Models. Now, Sd.Kfz Models is a company based in Latvia, and of recent times they've been concentrating on some World War I armoured vehicles. And this is, I think, their 4th or 5th in the range, and something quite different. It's a Canadian armoured machine gun carrier. Now, World War I was the first war which had mechanized armoured vehicles. So at the time, it was sort of just after motorized vehicles were becoming popular, motor carriages, I guess. And this particular one is built on a chassis which originated in the States. It was all conceived by a Canadian who was actually originally a Frenchman, and he made his fortune in Canada, but he had a military past, and as World War I came about, he had this idea that a motorized machine gun carriage would be useful in this sort of war. And as of the time, the government itself didn't fund the project, it was privately funded. So he used his own money and his own design. He went to the States, got the chassis from the auto car company, and then he went to Colt to get machine guns, because at the time he couldn't get any Vickers from England. Put it all together, got some steel, and put together this particular motor carriage. Now, it looks pretty simple, I guess, because fundamentally you don't need it to be very complicated. So he got himself a 2-ton truck chassis. So he made sure the chassis was strong enough to have the extra weight of the armor. So the plates are made up of 3mm and 2mm, and I think somewhere along the line they use a 9.5mm as well, which to today's standard isn't very much, but during the time they were dealing with small arms and such. So 2 machine guns mounted on pedestals here. So initially for the prototypes we used the Colts, but these are the Vickers which were used in Europe. And this particular design is the design which is considered to be the most influential towards the armoured vehicles coming into the Second World War. So let's have a quick look and see what is included in the kit. Now, the boxes I quite like because they're very nice print. The artwork's really good, and it's actually a cover for a very well protected box. So I guess it's coming a long way. Let me see if I can make this stand up. Fold that a bit. Right, that's not going to stand up. Leave it like that. Okay, very solid box here. Protects all the fragile bits inside. Nice artwork there. Line drawing, the profile. Okay, so you just lift up corners here and opens up like so. Now this guarantees that all the parts inside are going to be very well protected. You get a very nice instruction manual. Instruction manuals from CSM, or Sd.Kfz Models, are always very nicely printed. They have a very period look to them, quite vintage. And as you can see, they're quite thick. So I'll put this aside, we'll come back to that at the end. Let's look at the bits and pieces. So, I've got 2 screws here. They're identical. So they've both got the wheels, so you've got a machine gun up here. Incredibly well sculpted and molded machine gun. So the Vickers machine gun. It's all in one piece pretty much. You have the ammo belt and such hanging off the side, and then this will be mounted onto the pedestal. The wheels, again, you see some really nice detail. You see the individual rivets for the round spokes. Very clean, hardly any flashing can be seen at all. Over here you've got the machine gun cooling box, so it has the water inside. And then you've got the, I think the sides of the ammo box. You can see the ammo there on the lid. That's another nice detail too, because you can actually see how random the movement of that belt is. Sometimes they can look very, very stiff in a plastic model kit. Then you have various other parts that are going to be used inside the motor carriage, such as these struts, which are going to be holding up the armoured plates on the side. So again, that's identical, because of course you need 4 sets of wheels, 2 machine guns. So that's good. It keeps the tooling much more simple as well. Okay, over here we've got the major parts of the side panels. So let's see, we'll hold it like this. So you imagine this is the driving compartment. You've got the angled front, and then you've got these armoured flaps across the side. So you've got the hinges here, so these sides could open up, or this whole panel could fold down as well. That allowed easier movement of the machine guns if they need to swing them around. But for full protection, they're always kept up. And it's quite nice because you can see the gaps where these are all hinged. They may look excessive here, but on the real one, they actually have these huge gaps in them. And then across here, you have the control surfaces. You've got these levers for the driver. Moving up, you've got the, let's see, I think that's a rear end. So those rear panels that also fold down. And then you've got the differential and then some suspension hubs. You've got the radiator right here. So they actually have very, very nice detail on the bottom of the chassis. There's no actual engine, but I don't think you really need one in this particular kit. There's already enough interesting parts included. All right, so we've got our final large piece of sprue here. This is the chassis rails. And then you've got your leaf springs. You can see just the bottom of the engine here. So the bottom of this engine is going to be hidden underneath this panel here. So that's where the engine would have been. I guess if you're very, very clever, you could scratch build one, have this lifting up. But I think it's not really necessary. You've got the main floor pan here. So you can see this is the driver's compartment. Steering wheel will go through this hole. Got a steering wheel there with a cooling fan. Got various parts of the suspension. And then you've got some more armoured components. So big flat sections, because it is a very boxy design. You've got the hubs here. This is for the front. There's another leaf spring which goes between the other two. And then there's the exhaust system. It's poking through. So there's actually a lot of this is visible on the underneath of the chassis. Okay, from there we have clear part here. Okay, so there's one sprue of clear parts, 2 lenses for the side lights, and then 1 for the main search lamp that's on the front nose. And then there's a sheet of decals. Now the decals are quite simple because they didn't have a lot of markings on these particular vehicles at the time. Very nicely printed, very thin, printed by the masters of decals of Cartograph in Italy. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite a simple kit in terms of the number of sprues, but when you look at the really fine parts that are included, it's a really nice kit, and we'll see that as we go through the manual. Okay, so I'm just making some room here. All right, let's get into the manual. So the manuals give me a very a reminiscent thought about Wingnut Wings. They had some of the best manuals available, and this one here is similar in terms of all their manuals have very, very detailed histories. So there's full history here, very good reference photos as well of the actual vehicles. And it goes through how the autocar company came about, and then how the French-Canadian gentleman approached them to make this particular vehicle. So you can see it actually in battle. There's actual destroyed one on the front in a battle with the Germans, and then more detail here. As you can see, I mean, it's quite thorough. There's a lot of research and a photo of the last existing autocar in a Canadian museum. All right, so they're very helpful in making the overall model and getting the finish right. Now the manuals are very, very nice in that the CAD drawings, have I missed a bit? No, that's where it starts. they're very clear. Okay, so I think I have missed a bit. Here we go. I have missed a bit. So here we've got the description of all the sprues that I've already gone through. It helps you locate and find the parts that you need. Then there's a little paint guide there. So with the numbers they'll show you which parts to paint. You see the codes here, these are color codes. And then the question mark is the optional, so you can paint it in the green or the black. Alright, so the construction starts with that under chassis component. You got the drive shafts, the exhaust goes in, so that's the base of the engine there. This is the building of the chassis with the two chassis rails joined by the cross members, and then suspension getting fitted here. You've got the leaf springs, and at the other end as well. And then here's just to show you where the exhaust hooks up onto the rail chassis, and then also to take care of where leaf spring connects onto the frontal leaf spring. Okay, so this is the mainly painting diagram of that lower part of the chassis with the engine, and then you move on to adding the steering system. You've got the cooling, so there's a fan, got the radiator, goes in with the connections to the hosing. You've got the steering column going in, that's the front bumper with the starter. We've got the rear box getting built, so storage area. The differential, so you can see the differential going in there with the big storage box at the back. The exhaust on the side here with the engine here. And then there's a steering mechanism going onto the front steering hubs. Alright, so you've got the rear hub going on, so it looks like a drum brake. Actually looks like a disc brake from here. You've got all the struts for controlling the brake. You've got the bulkheads going onto the floor pan now, so we're doing the interior. You've got sections here for making the wall with these pedestals for accepting the machine gun mount. Here's the upper supports, and then these are the additional supports for the folding armored plates. So I guess you can cut those and have them folded down when the actual the plates are pushed down. And there you have your main structure. So you got your floor pan mounted onto the rail chassis now. Here they're concentrating on the drive section, so you've got the levers there for control and the steering wheel. This is the horn being mounted near the driver with the first side panel, armoured side panel going in. And this is taking note of where all these support braces are going to go. And then we'll go to the next section. Okay, so from what I can tell, that's probably a fuel tank. And then you do the other armoured panel. Take note of how it connects together. You've got the rear panel going on, seal up the storage compartment. Little levers and handrails, and then you're doing the lights. So this particular one is the main searchlight, and then you have the two secondary lights on either side, and that shows you how they're mounted on. And then we've got next step. So we're getting close. So you can already see how many really fine parts there have been incorporated. You've got more armoured plates going in. There's a protection from the back, the armoured plate for the gearbox housing. You've got steps here for entering the vehicle. Wheels are going on. Here's the machine gun ammo box and the cap, which has been left open with the belt of bullets coming out and then connected up here. So you can see how that random sort of movement there looks very natural, and then the handle going on the gun. So you do two of those. You've got the primer strap for the ammo coming out the side, and here's the cooling box. And then it's connected here, up around the barrel to do the water cooling of the barrel. And then there's a couple of mounts that go onto the pedestals, and then the machine guns are mounted in with the cooling bottles left on the base. And that's done. So then you have the different options for your decals and the paintwork. So you've got this one, which is the Armoured Autocar around about 1918. Same here with different numbers. Then over here, okay, April, different versions. And then here you've got some different divisional marks. This particular one, 1918 as well, later in August. And that's it. And that's the end of the manual. Okay, so that's a really decent build of a very interesting World War I armoured vehicle. So the Canadian machine gun carrier. So apparently it's considered to be one of the highest influences of armoured cars of the Second World War, particularly the M2, M3, half-track type vehicles, and then also like the Bren gun carrier and that sort of idea of vehicle, even the armoured vehicles of the Russian side as well, like the BA-30. So hope you found that interesting and enjoyed looking at all the interior parts and decals and the manual. Thanks for watching.